Well, hello. It's the A to Z podcast. Shouts to Blue Wire. Shouts to American Fireworks. Always open at AmericanFireworks.com. Shouts to you guys. If you're a longtime listener, thank you. We're glad to have you. If you're new here, we're glad to have you too. Understand that we get excited. We venture into immature/mature subjects. We sometimes say four-letter words. So if that's not for you, or if you're in a work environment, if there are kids around, put on your earbuds or come back to A to Z at another time. Facebook.com/A to Z podcast. I'm Zach Jackson. He's Andre Knott. Football is like, I don't want to say officially here, Dre. I can't count those 3 or 4 college games, right? But
but they played, and I was wait a minute now. All right, quickly, did you tell them about the warning? Because I think we can stop the warning. I was on the Brownstown that comes out Tuesday. I was on when you go into your podcast, however you go into your podcast, and in the Brownstown one, it says when you read about it, it says show. Brownstown, frequency, weekly series, published August 24th, length. Then it has a rating, and the rating for Brownstown is explicit. So I'm wondering if we can get the same thing with A to Z, and then we just don't have to tell you people that we may say words. Or do you guys do it? Is that a good way for you to do? I do,
because listen, I know it probably says that, and I appreciate it, and we appreciate Blue Wire, kind of walking us through this process, because Lord knows I'm not capable of doing anything on my own.
Oh, yeah. Our rating says explicit, too.
Right. But listen, I've listened to a bunch of different podcasts produced by a bunch of different companies. Have you ever read the fine print?
No, I don't read nothing.
And I just, like I said, and it's not like we do it all the time. I remember a conversation a couple of summers ago where my high school basketball coach was like, "Hey, how you doing? Great to see you. How's everybody?" And he's like, "I got to tell you, I turned on the podcast the other day while I was working in the garage, and boy, I wasn't ready for that."
I know. And it's like there's a couple.
And I said, "Well, why the fuck weren't you?"
Yeah, you know me. You know what you're getting. This ain't but I'm even going through that with the Brownstown thing. And you know how that was. Like in every interview and everything we did, I'm not saying we were raw, uncut, HBO, let them flow. But they're part of the conversation when you're having – I guess you and we've always been on this. So if you're new to this podcast, if you've been here, you know how we roll. Like we just talk like we're sitting around in one of our backyards with the fire pit going, or like we're in a bar talking sports. So a 4-letter word may come out. And I can admit this. My wife – if the beginning of Brownstown starts with me basically saying, if you're listening to this podcast, the Browns have fucking sucked. And she's not that happy about it starting that way. She's like, you really got to use the F-bomb like right out the gate. And I'm like, well, it just doesn't come off the same. I was like, you can give me another term, you can give me another word. But it just doesn't. Sometimes you got to say fuck. And I'm like, in that situation, you got to say it. And I know my parents will probably kind of roll their eyes too, but so be it. That's what their son has become.
I think it's this. I think it's since I was 10 years old, my mom would say, know your audience, right? And then when I was 30 and then when I was 42, my mom would say, know your audience. So there's a time and a place, but I think we try to make clear to our audience that we are very rarely going to follow a script here, right? We are very rarely going to feel censored or pressured to take a certain line, right? And we're going to let it flow. So, frankly, this is take 5 of this as we went through some computer problems. It's probably going to be Tuesday morning or even afternoon before you hear this as we continue to go through the Blue Wire transition. Eventually, next to nothing will be different. So to you guys who have been here, thank you. We know most of you are gosh darn excited for football, and so are we. Yeah. Thursday night, the Buckeyes play, Jerry. I don't know I'm sure the Indians play there, although they might have a day game. I don't know.
I think we play at 8:00 in Kansas City. Okay. Yeah, but
So you'll definitely have it on one of those studio monitors. You'll definitely have the Buckeyes game.
I was about to say, I'm too TV Tony. I'll be watching it one way or the other.
You are fooling absolutely no one. Yes.
No. I was going to say, so what we categorized last weekend as week 0. Like Matt we were Saturday. Because I've listened to people like Zach Jackson, who are my friends, quote unquote, quotations. The season don't start till next week. So I kind of walk into our studio. We were in the studio, but I kind of walk into our booth on Saturday, and we always have a TV on whatever sport's going on, whether it's golf, whether it's college basketball, whatever, football. And I walk in, and Nebraska's. And Illinois is on TV, and it's the big Fox game. And my boys are all set up. Rick Manning, Matt Underwood, our stage manager, and our stats guy, Tommy Bowe. they're all, already eating lunch, eating dinner, getting ready for the 4:00 game, and they're watching college football. And I'm like, damn, fall started already? And Underwood was like, well, this is week 0 of the season. And I'm like, or maybe our producer, Murph, said it. And I'm like, what the hell is week 0 of a season? And what, like, can you give me the parameters or who came up with this great idea to play 7 games on Saturday?
Yeah, the truth be told, the first time I ever heard week 0 was in relation to Texas high school football.
Really?
Right?
Okay.
And it was just a way that teams could either play in week 0 or week 1. And a few years ago, a couple of college games popped up. I'm guessing there was, because the NCAA has had these ancient rules forever.
Right.
And the Nebraska-Illinois game was originally supposed to be played in Dublin, Ireland. That's why.
Okay.
Right. And so, COVID whacked that. And I just, I don't know all the details, but I can tell you that 6 or 7 or 8 years ago, I heard the term week 0 from a friend of mine who lives in Texas. And I thought that's weird. And a couple of years later, it started popping up in college. But no, I have long circled, the official start of college on Thursday. This is a week that we've never had in my 20 years around the NFL. It's not an extra week on the calendar, but usually this Thursday is the end of the preseason and the cuts are on Labor Day. Well, the NFL eliminated a preseason game to lengthen the regular season. Cuts are on Tuesday. Again, this is early Monday evening when we're recording this, so we don't know. I don't expect anything crazy from the Browns anyway. So I'm usually just getting into that mode. Like, I can remember many times, not many times, but Ohio State has played a handful of Thursday night openers, right? Being at the Browns game in Chicago or in Cleveland, and Ohio State being on the TV, because that fourth preseason game, outside of 10 or 12 guys, it doesn't really mean anything, and it was too long. And camp was too long this year. We'll get into that. But, let's just start with a little Browns. I want to get into some bigger picture football things here.
Damn, man, look at you. You got to talk about knowing your audience. You ain't teasing them or nothing. You going right into it. I got notes this week, bro.
Okay.
Look, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna tell you. I know you don't do this because you don't like showing your ugly face and showing what you're doing. I got notes, son. I'm not gonna let you read them, but I got notes, son.
Yeah. So on this setup, I can see Dre. He can't see me, I don't think. Well, I'm not wearing pants, so
I don't want to see, bro.
Kevin Stefanski saw something that he wanted to play as starters. Probably it was just following the routine, right? Sit him the first week, go against the Giants the second week, do that. It worked out. It doesn't appear that anybody got hurt. They got good work. They had 2 good drives. They caught Atlanta. The rub route worked to perfection. They got a big play, then they didn't get in on 4th down.
Man, that big, and I don't want to be negative Nelly, but that big play was so August football, and so Atlanta's going to be awful.
But that's the Stefanski offense, though. Right?
I know.
You're going to run guys in different
directions.
That's
a common play in the Stefanski offense. I know. But for the Falcons to be in man and for them to man cover it the way they did and the guys running each other on a cross, when they're coming out of training camp, and that's one of the basic fundamental, either you switch off or you stay zone. Like, there's just ways to cover that play so much better. And they covered it as bad as you possibly
If
could.
Austin Hooper has another 50-yard reception this year, then I'll buy you Swenson's. Okay.
Oh, let's go, Austin! Taste buds just got popping.
But like I said, the touchdown on the second one was a big boy throw.
Yeah, for sure.
Just the preseason, Dre. I think you look at the teams bring energy. Are there fast guys? Or do they look like an organized operation? And for many years, of course, they didn't, because it was always a new staff. Right. So the Browns came out, and the results carry over 0. But they got guys work who they felt needed work. They looked like a fast, efficient operation. And as they go forward into this year of expectations, which seem valid, right, and all this excitement, which seems legit, all you can ask for on the outside is to know that the organization, the operation, is going to give them a chance every week. Right? It's not always going to be great. So I do want to introduce one thing to the A to Z lexicon. So
this is a big moment.
The rule is at training camp.
I don't know what's coming.
No, you don't. The rule is in training camp, we're allowed to watch and we're allowed to report on what we see. We are not allowed to report what we hear. And it's a common question that I get via Twitter in the comments section of my articles, and I understand. And the reason is for strategic reasons. The alternative is we're not allowed to report at all, right? Or we're allowed to semi-report and pretend we didn't see anything, which is the biggest bullshit, right? Yeah. So they just don't want us reporting that a coach is telling a player, well, obviously something inappropriate in today's culture, but a certain thing that could be past the strategy, right? They don't want us reporting the Browns worked on no huddle today. And as they sprinted to the line, every time he yelled red, he threw it to Landry. And every time he yelled blue, it went to Peoples-Jones, right? They don't want us saying that we heard the defensive coordinator telling Miles that they're going to block you on this way, so you have to play to your outside leverage because that will open up things for the blitzer coming up the other out. Because that gets online and teams see it and they adjust. Like I can remember way back in the early ClevelandBrowns.com days, in the video days, the big thing was don't let your cadence get online.
Right. You don't want your cadence out.
Teams are going to jump the snap counts and start reading your audibles in August. Did that ever happen, especially on a 2002 internet connection? I highly doubt it. But do I understand? Yes. So anyway, if you followed the writing, if you followed the podcast, Jabril Peppers was put on a show that day, the second day of practice. He was talking smack to the Browns both days, and it was fun. And he and Baker were going at it, and Baker even talked about it on the record and called him Little Pep and all this stuff. But the second day, the Giants
shouldn't be calling nobody little on a football field.
No, but it was funny when he did it, quite frankly.
I'm sure.
He's feeling himself right now, and it's understandable.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Just like Jake Paul and all of Westlake.
We'll get to that too.
Oh yeah, anyway, that's on the notes.
Anyway, so we believe the Browns are a well-run organization and have a chance to be in a window here of contention and memorable games and actually winning prizes. Right? We'll see. Does that translate to this year? And are they deep enough to not get derailed by one thing going wrong? We'll see how all of that goes. But it is a what have you done for me lately league in the NFL. And that day, when the Giants really got pushed around and especially zinged by the passing game on the first day, they got the better of the second day. And so Peppers is yelling at Baker, and Baker's saying, well, yesterday I completed 80% on you, and Jabril tells him 80% my ass. So Jabril proceeds to spend the next 90 seconds, no exaggeration, screaming from the other sideline, hey, Baker, it's a what have you done for me lately league. It's a what have you done for me lately league, baby. It's a what have you done for me lately league. So the preseason means nothing, 0-0, right? And in the grand scheme, the result of this KC game doesn't mean a lot, right? Unless it ends up deciding home field. But,
let me ask. You brought some things to attention. Take a breath. I want you to think about some stuff. The way that preseason football goes in the NFL is this year was different. This was the most different one that's ever happened in our lifetime, you and I. I'm 43 years old. I'm gonna tell you this. You can just name this episode. Andre's getting old as hell and realize that. I used to get a eight piece of chicken from Popeyes and a 12 pack of beer, and we would go to a studio and do podcasts all night long and have the fun and eat chicken and drink beer, literally. Today I have this is my second cup of coffee that I'm on per constant to do the podcast. but so to get hyped up to do the A to Z podcast, I don't go make a cup of coffee, and I don't go grab 8 Miller Lights and a box of chicken. Now that we've kind of seen what exactly has happened with this 3-game preseason and hearing and just going around and paying attention to what happened around the league, I think more was accomplished not only in Browns camp, Zach, but in just camps, period, by the teams inviting other teams to practice and having those practice days and just in seeing what we saw. Because a lot of guys that we knew were going to be on teams did not play a lot in the preseason. Certain teams had their ways and did different things. But for the most part, you saw people take back, pull things in for the games. But I did see a lot of teams practicing within themselves with other teams to kind of get them ready. And what you just told, that story you just told, tells me that the Browns probably got more of those 2 back-to-back days going against the Giants than any of the preseason games we were able to watch.
Yeah, and Stefanski would have to answer that, whether that's true or not. But I think when they laid it out in the spring, that was probably the intent, right? And, I don't think everything is a new school, old school thing. Like sometimes it gets made out to be in our business, but I think these are here to stay. And Stefanski came out and said it. They play a different defensive front than we do. Their offensive base is different than ours, so we're getting different looks, and we can control it, right? And that means control the guys not to fight, and it means if we want to get an extra snap in the 2-minute drill or the red zone, we do, right?
You get an extra look against a certain defense, you can go over to that. That coach say, hey, can you run cover 3 again out of the dime or out of the nickel? Right.
If
you can't do that in a preseason game.
Sure, we just got 5 good plays, and I'm ready to take my ones out. Or 5 shitty plays, and I need to see 3 more.
Bingo.
Right?
Bingo. Can you give me this? Yeah, no, I just think that's a way to practice that helps everybody out a little bit more than in a game where there's actual game, situations going on. Just not the same.
Yeah, so I was surprised that he played the starters even a little bit he did, and he still sat 6 or 7 guys out, right?
Right. But look at that list. You even wrote it. Look at the list of players you wrote down in your article afterwards that didn't play. That says so much about where the Browns are at.
It sure does. It sure does. Andy Reid played his guys because they had 4 new offensive linemen, so they needed the snaps, right? The Ravens played J.K. Dobbins and lost him for the year. Frankly, that's malpractice. It is. Man. I don't know other way to have any other way to say that.
That kid is talented too.
Sure, and he made them different, right?
Yes.
Just a little bowling ball, big playability, right? In his second year, was going to see the holes better, was going to know the offense better, was going to know the league better.
It's going to be a problem.
Yes, and now
they got a problem.
Right, a team that wants to lead the league in rushes just lost its number 1 running back.
Right. And I hear the jokes, everybody making about the quarterback being – it's different. Part of what makes him essentially untouchable is having that bowling ball running back. I think the other thing that stands out to me about Baltimore, their coach hates the preseason, Zach, hates it, but they never lose preseason games.
It's a remarkable streak, isn't it?
They don't, and I bet they don't make T-shirts in Baltimore about it.
Well, it's probably a tribute to the system that they've built, the scouting system that they've had. That's the same one since they moved, right? Mm-hmm. It's to keeping the coordinators together and having the carryover that they've had there. And so sometimes it just comes down to priorities.
Yeah, right? But no, you just said some key things, and not to go on a Brownstown tangent, but that part is hard for me, and that's kind of I'm glad you did this, and we didn't do this on purpose. That's part of what you just said. It's part of the reason why I made Brownstown, because I feel like what you just said that's us. What the Baltimore Ravens are doing without Art Modell being the selfish, pathetic piece of crap that got pissed on all over the place. And you'll key on tomorrow or whenever you hear this podcast, go over to wherever you do podcasts, go to Brownstown. And I believe the second edition is about Art Modell getting his grave pissed on. We talk about piss a lot in it, but not in the way that you think. You just got to go listen to it. It's really good. I just listened to it earlier today, but it comes down at like people. You'll see.
The Blue Wire folks are saying this is the greatest promoter ever. Andre Knott.
You're right. Only in America, baby. I'm not.
You know what his favorite subject is? Andre Knott.
Andre Knott. Only in America, baby. I can't sell me. Who can sell me? Shit. Anyway, but when I hear you say that, I get fired up because that's the Browns. Everything you said, you're like, well, since they moved, but you're right, and that's how the Browns should have been set up. But the two owners that came together to make sure the NFL had 2 new teams, one in Baltimore, one in Cleveland, didn't do what was right and sell the team to his best buddy and move his ass to the background. The Browns should have had that. Because you're right. The Baltimore Orioles, for everything – Baltimore Orioles. It's baseball season. The Baltimore Ravens, for everything that we can dislike about their uniforms, about having a guy that killed a guy in a white suit and we haven't found the white suit, for all the things that they've done, that's the Cleveland Browns. Like, that's who the Browns should be. But they're not. And hopefully they come around and they'll have the same ingredients that we want, that the Ravens have. And I think they can do that. I just get frustrated, Zach, because when I hear you say that, because I have a respect for how the Ravens play. I really do. Defensively, offensively, they're willing to run an offense based off of their quarterback, whether he's whether it's Elvis Grbac or whether it's whoever. Look at the guys they've had. Like, they'll change, but they don't change with their defensive philosophy and how they go about playing tough football. And you can say the same thing about the Steelers. I hope the Browns are finally taking that step where no matter who the quarterback is, so we don't act crazy about it, or no matter who the running back or wide receiver is, the Browns just have a style that's their style.
Yeah, and that's what they're developing, right? It takes time. I think a big picture Browns question, Dre, that we can't answer for 6 months and maybe for 6 years is how much will they regret that last 20 minutes last year against Chad Henne, right? Because you're just starting a program and you're getting to where you haven't been in 30 years, right? And you're feeling good about yourself and you've conquered a lot of demons. They took a lot of dubious streaks last year and buried them, right? And then Pat Mahomes, who's who both of us think is the greatest quarterback we've ever seen play or has a chance to be, or, probably both, right? Gets hurt, and you have a chance to win the game in Arrowhead in the divisional playoffs, and you don't.
Okay, but you know what? I love those what ifs. They weren't meant to be in the Super Bowl last year. And you're right. They overcame so many things, and they just weren't ready. They maxed out on the 2020 Cleveland Browns, in my opinion. That's a great conversation piece to have. What would you do in those last 20 minutes? They didn't have the Joes. They didn't have them. They played a hell of a game. They really did. And I know where you're at with this. I guess I just can't look back on it. You know what I mean? I feel like they got the most out of what they had. Kansas City, I thought the defensive coordinator did a good job in preparing for Kansas City. But let's remember, they came into that game. KC, Mahomes was hurt before he came into the game. And to me, what I always will think is that when the shot wore off, the pain kicked in, and that's when it became a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at the time, it was a concussion protocol issue too, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, but the toe was a problem, and it was a problem.
No, and the offensive line was a problem. Now they didn't lose their tackles till the Super Bowl, but he got beat up. They for much of the back half of last year were not the Kansas City Chiefs at full strength.
And I'll ask you this: you're around the team more than I am, or more than anyone that's listening. The motivation for the Browns should be different because if you win that game with everything we just said, and you go to the Super Bowl and Tampa does what Tampa does, or whatever happens, like I'm gonna be honest with you, and I'm saying this a week and a half before the season, 2 weeks before the season starts. I'm not Super Bowl or bust on the Browns this year. I understand that there's steps to it. Can they get there? Sure, they can. They have an opportunity. They're one of the top 4, top 3 chances in the AFC, and think about the leap that is in saying that. But I'm not gung ho on this is Super Bowl or bust year, and I've been hearing that, and I know excitement is excitement, and look, if any city, any town deserves to have excitement about their football team, it's here. I just don't want to get ridiculous with it. I don't see I can't sit here and say Super Bowl or bust. I say AFC Championship, win a playoff game, win another playoff game. To me, that's kind of what you shoot for and go from there. That's just me.
All right, 2 things. No, that's fair. And I'm glad we're having this discussion because, frankly, it's what everybody wants to talk about, I think, right? Mm-hmm. 2 things. One, I do think Andrew Berry is the right man for the job, and I do think the Browns going forward will evolve like the good teams do, right? The Chiefs knew they had to fix their offensive line, right? The Browns knew that defense wasn't good enough. They knew that was quite obvious. And as bad as the raw numbers were and the basic statistics were, the fact that they played 2.5 games in a tornado saved them from being even worse, right? That game, that Browns KC game, did not take on the shape of a shootout. Frankly, if Higgins scores that touchdown, it might. If Mahomes doesn't get hurt, it might. But just because they didn't doesn't mean that the Browns can't evolve. But the second thing, I'm glad you talk about realistic goals because I think, to me, the most simple one is this. If you win the division, it was a successful year. Because the one thing, other than winning it all, right, that you have to conquer is you need that home playoff game. It hasn't happened since we were in high school. And we're fucking old.
Wow, and we're old. That's what we're telling you. I had to drink coffee to get ready for this thing.
Right, and like to say that the Ravens and Steelers are who you're chasing for 20 years is right, and you go ahead and promote Brownstown again, right? But like you have to beat them. You have to beat them and beat them in the standings. And even if it's won by tiebreaker, even if it's won because somebody gets hurt, right? Like when you win the division, that to me is a huge accomplishment. Now, if you win the division and get beat on January 15th, it will feel empty. It will. But I just think if you look at in the grand scheme here, if the Browns are as good as we think they can be, no J.K. Dobbins, Big Ben is our age, the Bengals aren't there, like win the division. I frankly can't believe it's plus money for the Browns to win the division, plus 140.
Plus 140, eh?
Yeah.
Ooh. Let me. All right, we don't have to finish on the Browns, but I have a tweet in front of me that I want to read to you, and then I just want to tell you the true steps that the Cleveland Browns organization has made. This is from Aaron Wilson, NFL writer that I don't mind. I trust. Tweeted out 41 minutes ago, Texans are prepared to have Deshaun Watson on the 53-man roster and inactive every week, according to multiple league sources. Watson, who was issued a standing trade request with no deal imminent, would be paid $10.54 million salary. Zach, what in the hell are the Houston Texans doing? And I asked that question, and for me, anybody that questions where the Browns are at, go look at the Houston Texans, because that's where we used to be.
No, right. They just never had a Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, true.
Right? No,
Right.
This is an interesting story. The NFL is in a difficult spot here, right? And again, it's tough to even talk about because these are serious accusations.
For sure.
There's a bunch of them, but to this point, they're nothing other than accusations, right? And we hear that the FBI has two different files on this. One, did Deshaun break serious laws? And two, was he the victim of an extortion attempt?
Right.
Right. So I'll say this. I don't know how it's going to go. And I know it would be very hard for a team to trade for him right now. And the Texans putting that out here, Dre, on Monday afternoon, feels like that they're begging someone to make them that offer. But teams, even with owner's permission, can't until they know he's not going to be
the process,
in trouble criminally, right? But I'll say this is how teams think. If you think he's going to get cleared, and you would think teams know, right? Unless there's just something. But you hear the words FBI, and I understand you would run from a trade.
You cringe a little bit.
Most teams would. Cringe, all those things.
Yeah.
If your cost is a couple draft picks, one awkward press conference, and a 3 or 4 game suspension,
no doubt,
and he's your quarterback for 10 years,
you do it.
I mean, like I said, you got to be real comfortable with what that background says, and I'm not going to get into what it is and isn't, or would I be comfortable if I was in charge, right? But inside these rooms, that's the conversation you have to have.
That is. And you're right when you say we'll have one uncomfortable, press conference. We'll play it low early on. We'll have to go with the suspension. We'll bring him back on a Friday afternoon at 5:00. There's all these little things that they can consider, and it goes back to who are you as an organization?
Yes,
like the Baltimore Ravens could go out and do that. The Pittsburgh Steelers, the New England Patriots, the Green Bay Packers are kind of losing their focus as well. But you know what? I feel like the Green Bay Packers have a system and they know who they are. Their issue is that they are so old school in how they're owned and how they've operated that they finally have had a player that's kind of broke through that and was like, that's not how the league works anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like only Aaron Rodgers or like a Brett Favre could take the Packers to the edge of the building of saying, hey, you got to run your team more like other teams in 2021, run them. They've been able to do that for a long time, and they're a great story, and you love that they're owned by the people and everything else, and they've given a lot of power to their general managers and presidents, and it's worked, right? And their coaches, and they've been one of the most successful teams over the last 20 years. But Aaron Rodgers has kind of broke through that ceiling of, nah, man, the players are more important than your little setup.
Yeah, as we touched on last time, I'm all in on the Aaron Rodgers versus everybody, including his own bosses tour.
Me too.
Right? I want Rodgers. I want Adams in fantasy. I want the Packers to win the NFC. That's like ideal.
And then I want him to discount double check them at the Super Bowl and be like, I'm done.
I want both teams to be in double-digit wins on Christmas afternoon at 4:30. I want that to be the game of games of the year. Yeah. And it's got a chance to be.
It does.
It does.
It really does.
Imagine a foot of snow with Rodgers throwing for 350 and Chubb running for 200.
Oh my God! The NFL that would be heaven.
I think it's in play. It's in play.
All right. Ian Rappaport is just reporting the Browns are waiving pass rusher Curtis Weaver for a former 5th-round pick.
Of course, he wasn't making the team, but
he wasn't.
By the time people listen to this, probably all the cuts are going to be out.
I'm just bringing it up as I see it.
Yeah. No, I got two. We only got a few minutes left here, but I got 2 quick quarterback thoughts.
I got a lot of stuff to go. You can't go nowhere. Okay. I got a meeting in 40 minutes.
I'm fascinated by this 49ers thing for one reason. Remember what Kyle Shanahan did to make Johnny Manziel a semi-effective weapon off the bench?
Yep.
When Johnny wasn't even sober and wasn't paying attention and wasn't working. Like imagine Trey Lance, who's locked in, who's super 10 times more athletic and better. Like we'll see what happens. And putting a 21-year-old rookie out there who played one college season at the 1AA level is scary as hell.
Yes, it is.
But like, here's my thought on all these guys. It's fair for us on the outside to ask, if you drafted him, why don't you play him? or is waiting 3 weeks, 6 weeks going to make him any more ready, any better? Well, I think the answer is, if your organization's worth a shit, the answer should be yes, right? Because if you've surrounded the guy with the right coaching and the right system, he should benefit from going through the process of prepping for a game week and seeing how teams play you and adjust to you.
Well, it's the way it's the best way to bring him along and being ready, but not having to put all the pressure on him all at once. Yeah. If you really believe in him, to me, it's
no. I agree with that. And then my second quarterback thought, guys, I think Baker's going to have a big year. I really do. I think he almost can't help but have a big year. I don't know what's going to happen with the contract, but it doesn't need to be an issue, because if you trust Andrew Berry, if you trust Kevin Stefanski, it's going to get done and he's going to earn it. But when you take a look at what we just talked about, the scope of these windows and how they don't stay open for long and how good you have to be around them, if he's wrong, they're not going to win the Super Bowl. Right. He could be right and still not win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so, you could be right about everything and not win.
So why wouldn't you wait 3 more weeks, 8 more weeks, 3 more months, 8 more months?
You wait as long as you can.
Deep breath.
You wait longer. All right.
Grade yourself on the real world scale and not the Cleveland Browns of the last 20 years scale. You got a podcast about that?
Yeah. Hey, man, I do the selling around here. You just talk. All right, I got some things that are written down on my list. And since Zach is pushing us through, I get 1 off day a month, but he wants to push us through because now his ass is over. He's 41 now, old. We got
42, thanks. I don't look at day over 40 and a half, though.
I forgot you're only 1 year younger than me. Man, black don't crack. You look about 55. Anyway. And the other thing, when you come to this podcast, sometimes we laugh at our own jokes more than you because we love ourselves more than you can.
That's right. We don't need any of you to listen. Thanks, but we don't really need it.
We don't really give a damn. We do this for ourselves. We're joining together for another I've had a fantasy team forever. I know no one cares about your fantasy teams. And this is my big league, and I'm bringing Zach in this year, and he has no idea the degenerates that he's about to be around, but he'll fit right in with that. So we'll leave that out of the conversation, but I do have him studying. I sent over notes today for him to study to get ready for this draft. We've talked about the college football schedule. It's weird. We'll get through it. We'll put the Kevin Love contract buyout stuff on hold. We don't need to talk about that. I have on here, and I want to get to most of this. I want to get to these 2 things. Javi Baez, Francisco Lindor, and the Mets and the thumbs down. Jake Paul and Tyson Woodley fight. Which one do you want me to start on first? We'll get both of them.
Let's talk about the boxing. Yeah.
Okay. And we'll do our baseball hour or whatever minute after the boxing. Okay, let me start with this. I am a huge boxing fan. I grew up in a household that it was a big deal on a Saturday night when Sugar Ray Leonard was fighting Marvin Hagler, rest in peace, through the Tyson years. It was a big deal. My parents or family would come over to the house. It'd be in the basement, food, part like that. Our families liked having get-togethers every other week, once a month. I felt like our family, we found reasons, whether it's birthday parties, whether it's boxing, whatever. A huge part of me growing up. I love the spectacle. One of my favorite, I can say when I was 17, 18, 19 years old, I always said I want to go to Vegas for a big fight. That was one of my dreams come true. And I never really did it because boxing has changed dramatically. Mm-hmm. And remember, I said this podcast can basically be called Andre's Getting Old and realizing it. I love the fight game. I love the spectacle that is of a fight game. I helped some guys get tickets to the fight last night at Rocket Mortgage. And I'm glad everybody had a good time. You know what? I'm just not buying into the Jake Paul thing. I don't know if these are real fights. They're real fights because they're taking punches. I just don't know if – I'm trying to find the right words because I'm not trying to completely annihilate what's happening. It's just not my thing, Zach. It's just I can't buy into it. I feel like these guys are – I feel like it's I told a couple of the Indians players yesterday. I just feel like it's WWE and I'm getting put on. But they're making numbers. They're making pay-per-view numbers, and there are people showing up. And look, I want, I like seeing Cleveland lit up, even though there are people I don't want to be near. No, I'm trying. I have spent stupid money on pay-per-views on fights I knew were going to be dumb. I didn't do that last night.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but I just can't buy in completely into what I see as what they're selling.
Well, fighting in stadiums is the dumbest thing, and it just shows what a dumb country we really have become. But in that case, like, I think everybody that went probably should have. Just it'd be better if they went back today and finish each other off. Go ahead. Open run.
Wow. I try to be politically correct in this whole thing, and in 2 seconds, you just wrap it up. No, but I was sitting here last night, and I won't say players' names, and players are texting me like, "Dre, you're not here. You didn't come. Why not?" I had multiple, and I'm like, and I tried to nicely just say, "No thanks." I just wasn't. And now look, I'm old. I got kids. I've been doing multiple jobs for the last 3 months. We were at the ballpark for 15 hours yesterday. That didn't play into it. I could have been at the ballpark 2 hours yesterday, and I wouldn't have gone. But like, as we were leaving the ballpark last night, as I was leaving the garage, and I saw what was going in, and it was just like that Friday night. They had like Summerfest at Rocket Mortgage, and I was walking underneath the wall in left field at the ballpark. And, you know, that's where the Rocket Mortgage and Jacobs Field, Progressive Field kind of converge underneath. Yeah. And I was walking next to a firefighter and a cop with a beer in my hand. And I go, man, it smells different down here tonight. And I looked at the cop, and he was like, he goes, yeah. He goes, they get that when you get certain concerts going on over here. And I was like, yeah, man, that smells good. Got in my car. And I saw that crowd, and I was like, yeah, I'm good on that too.
So, like, Lindor and Baez, are we talking like top 3 dumb things that have happened by pro athletes in a long time?
I think it's deeper than that. Yeah, I mean, it's stupid. But I read an article on The Athletic last night. Let me say this. It's immature, it's asinine, it's ridiculous, and it's having no feel for where you're at, the player's side. And for Lindor, and I haven't even talked to Frankie about this, and I know him, so people think I'm going to say certain things. I know I can assess it from afar, and I will here because this is what we do, and it doesn't mean I'm right, but it's just my initial feelings. The Mets are a hot garbage mess, and that organization has been that for a very long time. And people have tried to tell Lindor that, but I think Lindor is at a point in his life he doesn't have a lot of, like, what this says to me. And knowing some things, but not knowing very much about this situation. He doesn't know who to trust or who to be around with the Mets. The Mets as an organization tried to do a do-good by him by putting Baez on the team to make him feel better and to make him feel more comfortable in the situation they've put him in. He's standing up with Baez doing that because Baez is a buddy, a friend he's known since he was 14, 15 years old. But what he's not really seeing and what he's really not cutting through is Baez is not going to be – he's played 7 fucking games for the Mets. He's not a Met. You're letting a guy that's only there who's ruining his free agent money day by day by his stupidity and the way he plays. Mm-hmm. And let me say this, by a side note. I am a big fan of how Javi Baez used to play. I don't know why these guys – he's gotten to a certain age. I mean, he plays hard, but he's shown his ass this year, not in a good way. The pressure of money being a part of it could be part of it. I thought it was awesome that he came out in 17 or 18 and admitted winning a World Series in 16 in Chicago, how he and a lot of his teammates let that go to their heads and they got caught up in being Chicago celebrities and not baseball players. He said winning a World Series in Chicago was one of the best things in his life, but it also became one of the hardest things in his life because he had to figure out how to deal with it. I don't know if Frankie really gets where he's at. I think Frankie is, I don't want to say lost, but you're not achieving anything by going back at fans.
Right. Just really simple and mature stuff.
Yes. Now, in saying that, and I think this is a different conversation. Everybody's not going to like this conversation, but I want to have it, though. Oh, man. Scott Petrak said Celtic Red Wine. First, the mini roster moves coming.
Told you, people still listen to this hours later.
I don't care because Huncora. Wait, I got to give love to Huncora first. He said Dre's still singing Red Wine on 3rd and 12. And I am. You know me. Red Wine all of the time. He gets beat on the nickel and dime. Anyway, I'm gonna come back singing on y'all's asses. I feeling good about myself. I read this article by Brittany. I can't remember her last with the G, and talking about this Mets situation. And Zach, I'm different about this. I know fans pay money for a ticket. I understand that you give your hard-earned money for buying a ticket, and you have the right to say and do as you please. I hate this world that we live in, though, that just because one guy makes X amount of dollars and you make X amount of dollars, you feel like you have the right to yell and shout and say whatever you want to them, and they can't respond back. Because a lot of the response and a lot of things that were written in this article by that I read in The Athletic was, well, they make $300 million. He makes that much money. I bought the ticket. I can say whatever he wants to him. He can't say anything back to me. I call bullshit on that. Because we're all human beings.
Sure.
And if you think as a human being that it's okay to boo somebody and say their mom sucks and to say this sucks, and you think that they're not going to respond to you because they make a lot more money, that means you're probably at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse last night.
Yeah, presentation matters is what we always say.
Right. I mean,
right?
but they are people though, Zach, right?
They are.
Like,
what I'm saying, in their response, the presentation matters.
Yes, but like to me, like where did we become a society of? And they try. Well, that's how New York works. But you're an asshole.
Well, yes, they've all long been assholes there.
Yeah, you're right. But like even my wife went through it yesterday, and we're not that bad here because I can tell you other cities that are really bad with this: Kansas City, New York, Boston. I'll say a couple more to piss you off in a minute. Where they ask for balls from the players, and then when the players walk away, they call them every other name and say racist shit about them. And I've heard it multiple times. And then they'll send their little 8-year-old son down, Petey. Hey, Petey, go ask this guy for a ball. And then when he walks back up, you're calling him every word in the book. And I almost said a couple, but I'm not going to. I just think that you can't get like if you're willing to boo somebody, and this is just how I was raised. If you paid your good earned money to boo somebody, I don't understand when you get mad if they come back at you and tell you to fuck off. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. When I was like 18 or 19, we can look the years up. Rob, my best friend and I, Rob Miller, we went to a Baltimore Orioles game, and I hope he listens to this podcast and he recalls this because it was a moment of it's so Rob and Andre, especially at that age. I was at Kent State. It was a year that Brady Anderson hit 50 home runs and the syringe was clean. Wink, wink. And it was like a Saturday game. We went hungover as could be, and we got tickets right behind the Orioles dugout at Jacobs Field at the time. And we rode Brady Anderson and Cal Ripken till our voices went. This is me admitting, but I was like 21. This is me admitting before I got into the role that I'm in, could be an asshole fan too, but I was a kid. I was a college kid. But I learned a lesson on this day, and I've never been this way since, except one other time. We were hooting on them. At first, we were kind of messing with them because there were girls around us that like Brady Anderson in his chops. And Rob and I were just riding him because he popped up a couple times early. And lo and behold, it was like a 6-5 game, 5-4 game or whatever. Late in the game, 8th or 7th inning, maybe 9th. It wasn't the 9th, but it was late. And they went back to back. Brady Anderson and Ripken. And Anderson, after he like clapped his hands, he looked up and he blew a kiss to us. and he was like, "Is that good enough for you, crybabies?" Yeah. And like at that moment, I laughed and tipped my hat to him. I was like, "You win."
His response was way better than Frankie's.
No doubt.
Yeah,
no doubt. And
no, it's one of those unfortunate things. It's a really bad look for the Mets.
But let me say one thing. Let me say this and then say it. I knew though when Brady Anderson blew the kiss to me, I was being an asshole. So I was like, all right, that's enough. He's a human being, and he heard me. What's going on in New York? It's just a bunch of idiots going back and forth. Go ahead.
All right, we got to go. Shouts to you guys. Shouts to Blue Wire. Shouts to American Fireworks. Always open at AmericanFireworks.com. And the holiday weekend is here. The end of summer is here. One last weekend in the pool for me, then football. It's what we're excited for. We're going to be back to twice a week. So thank you guys for sticking with us. Glad to have you on board. Continue. One way you guys can help us, Facebook.com/A to Z podcast. Give us a like. Give it a like. That's how the word spreads. in addition to just, telling your friends and family as we get ready to go here. So it's a fun time for both of us. Buckeyes Thursday night, Browns in 2 weeks.
Hey,
a lot of football, lots to talk
How's
about.
the Panthers doing? How's the Panthers with my man
We're going
coaching?
to talk off the air about the Panthers.
Oh, damn.
So before I get either of us and one of my family members in trouble, he's Andre, I'm Zach. We'll talk to you soon.
Konnichiwa, preseason.